any proposal can only take effect if it's actually then either endorsed by the DOE or endorsed by the Assembly as a whole in terms of any planning zone whatsoever. Any proposal, any planning application will have to have that approval. So how is it taking power away?
Actually, I mean, no ministers now outside of DUP and Sinn Féin should feel safe now, and nowhere in Northern Ireland will be safe when this planning amendments go through, if and when they go through.
I want to just state at the outset is that this is not about OFMdFM taking over this role.
If the Department of the Environment doesn't cooperate, then by order a draft can be laid and approved by resolution of the Assembly, which is another way of saying that the ruling DUP Sinn Féin cabal can override the Department and force their will. So isn't it rather disingenuous to pretend that this is anything but a takeover? And if it's about cooperation, would that be the same sort of cooperation that the Dell Minister had in the announcement of the schemes by the First Minister which affect his department, in which there was no consultation whatsoever?
To say I was shocked when I saw this amendment would be an understatement. To submit such a substantial amendment with such far-reaching consequences right at the deadline for submission is, in my opinion, unacceptable. At committee, I worked closely with my colleagues, including Mr Weir and Mr Boland. They were aware of the likely amendments I would seek. I think to not extend similar courtesy to committee colleagues shows that this is Sinn Féin DUP riding roughshod.
I hope we actually put the responsibility to the Minister of the Environment and that we don't alter that responsibility, which is still for discussion.
So you think it's a bad thing to have the First and Deputy First Ministers take some of these planning powers to their department?
If the First Ministers want to have particular bits, it sounds to me as if they're trying to create what I would call an enterprise zone philosophy, some parts of Northern Ireland. I would, in fact, let's have those rules, if they can find an appropriate method of defining the areas on the rules, but leave it with the Department of the Environment and say to the Department of the Environment, you've trained in the past your town planners, you tell us that you've been training them to take into account economic issues. Right, let's make sure they're now absolutely trained to cope with the needs of the 21st century, which I think we would all probably agree will require a sharper training focus.
The whole debate this morning exemplifies the difficulty when you have five-party coalition government. We had three parties this morning who are all ostensibly in government, all disagreeing with the way ahead. And I would predict, listening to what I've heard this morning, that it will all end up in the courts because there doesn't appear to be a meeting of minds along. I mean, the sooner that the whole question of planning, of course, is being devolved to the new super councils in 2015, and where local people will be taking decisions over planning issues, the sooner the better that happens, in my view.
And you have to have clarity in where they're going. And if it's not one minister and it's going to another department, there is no clarity for anybody there, and I think it's been a big mistake for Sinn Féin and the DUP to bring this in. I think Anna Lowe's point that no other minister other than a DUP or a Sinn Féin minister can feel safe now is actually the biggest message out of this.